we are rebuilding the engine on all levels. Not just sitting down and breathing, we're really honoring the body movement, the skeletal structure. So it's all necessary that things can rebuild.
You may be able to connect with this scenario. You might have been active throughout your teens, 20s, maybe even 30s, but then you've noticed that as you start to get older beyond that point, fatigue's starting to set in. Your body's starting to feel more tense. Your energy levels are getting lower and lower. It's harder to recover, and you're finding it difficult to do the exercise that you used to because your body is kind of like rejecting it, it might feel. So if you're wondering why exercise is fatiguing your body, why you can't do the things that used to work for you, that's what today's video is all about. We're going to go through 3 key things to become aware of, and also give you the tools so you can address it and work with your body where it's at today and start to reverse that cycle that you may be on of degeneration and start to make change so we can move into a cycle of regeneration. So as we go into this, let's just get straight into the first point around the state of the nervous system. And this is a common thing that can really sap your energy. And if your nervous system is in a chronic state of dysregulation, if you've got fatigue, particularly like adrenal fatigue, your kidneys are exhausted, you've got blocked energy and stress in your body, then it's going to be difficult to recover and put your body through challenge when it's already under an internal load. So I'll pass over to Marcus as we go into this area.
Yeah, and in a way, this has nothing to do with age, because maybe you're thinking about, oh yeah, this is normal when I get older. Maybe in today's society it is normal, but when we look in other cultures, there are people, they are in their 60s, 70s, 80s. They have a really flexible body and they have good energy levels. So it's just based on the lifestyle we have chosen here in our Western society, where everything is just really high paced, and we are we are thinking we need to do this and we need to do that because we are missing something out and all that stuff. And this is just building up. And also maybe just your daily work can just add up. When you feel a bit stressed at work, it just adds up over time. And then you go to your gym or to your sport performance, and you're doing also there your best to get better, but your body is not able to take it. Then you're also just adding up to this stress spot, which is already opened. And then there will be a time when the last drop is going into this pot, and then it's just overfloating, and your body is not able to handle what you're throwing at him. And then it's just going into the other direction. And this is what we're talking about. And Benny and I, we went through this, and in a way, I am thankful that my body started this in my late 20s to give signals in that direction. So I was able just to dive into it a bit earlier than later, but it's never too late. It's just my personal story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And it just requires us to look at things in, I suppose, a way that is understanding the principles of nature and like how our body works. And like particularly a thing in Western culture, like you were saying, is we're very achievement oriented and often defined by that which we do. And so then we do more to essentially like experience that sense of validation. And while there's nothing wrong with it, we don't often give the room for like rest.
Yes.
And that's a big thing culturally, and so that can be even more difficult, particularly when the culture, like, it's like, well, why are you resting? You're lazy. You're like all of these things. It's no wonder like that where our bodies are breaking down, even though we might be living longer, we're not living with quality, right? It's sort of quantity over quality.
Yes.
And so, when you look at, like I was saying, like the principles of nature, we really need to understand that yin yang symbol, and where we've got one half black, the other half white, and within the white there's a bit bit of black, and within the black there's a bit of white. And this is in reference to like that which you, if you keep asking your body to put out output from your body all the time and you're not putting back in, it's going to, you're already out of balance of that natural process of nature. Everything is designed to have a regeneration, natural regenerative cycle. Rain comes down, it fills up the water, the sun evaporates that water, fills up, and then the rain comes back down. We go through different seasons and cycles. Our body's no different. And so often we're detached from that, we're separated from that. And so our nervous system is giving us signals as to where we are disconnected from those natural rhythms, from those natural cycles. And one of those core cycles that is useful for us to become aware of and start to change, like it, in some ways you may feel that you need to move in different direction to the culture that you see, and to start to like honor your body's need for rest.
Yeah.
Which is,
And
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and we're not talking about rest like I need to take some days off or doing more rest days in your training plan. No, we are not talking about this. This is just cosmetics. We really need to change the fundamental thing, how your body is able to rest. This
Yes.
is what we
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point, because it could then be interpreted as, well, I go hard and then I stop,
Yeah.
go hard and then I stop. And that's one way of doing it, but that's a separation of that yin and yang. Remember, it's like there's a bit of the yin and the yang and a bit of the yang and the yin. And so what we're really looking at is like, how can we be restful as we're also being active?
Yes.
And this fundamentally changes the way that we approach exercise, rather than just leaving it all on the table, burning ourselves out, even if we're already burned out and if we're already stressed. It's like pulling from energy that we don't have. How can I leave some on the table? How can I come back to, okay, well, what's the thing that's fueling me right now? Like, how can I take my life force into my body as I'm exercising? I might drop that intensity back a little bit and start to find a point of how can I still be active and relax into this a little bit more. And this is where we can get the wheels turning of the body, get all the fluids and everything the body loves to support its health moving, but then also bringing in more energy as we're going through that and receiving it. You know, that's a big part, because if the body's tense, it's not in a state of receptivity.
Yes.
And it blocks those energy flows through the body. Yeah.
And in a way, this brings us to the next point, like with skeletal alignment. And it's not about having the right posture. It's just get a deeper awareness where your body feels stuck and where you feel like energy is not moving through. In a way, wherever your body gives you some sensations of chronic tension, energy is not flowing. It's just like a hose system, and there is the hose is, I don't know the English word for,
Kinked.
yeah, this hose is kinked, and then it starts to block, and you just must understand, you're not feeling this kink, you're feeling it beyond or below where it's not flowing. So we just have to dive
Pressure.
deeper. Yeah, where the pressure is built up.
Yeah.
And this is what skeletal alignment is, in our point of view. We just need to get aware of, okay, where are these kinks and where we are invited to open up. And that tension and energy can flow through also from a skeletal perspective.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a common thing of like linking back to the point that was started on around the nervous system being really in a chronic state of dysregulation, and then the
Yeah.
body tensing up, and then that tension then causing this skeletal system to be pulled out of balance. And so
Yeah.
that if we don't honor that first part, and then we just go, oh, my posture's crooked and all that sort of stuff, I've got to do more exercise to stretch this and strengthen that. There's a whole industry built around this. And while
Yes.
there's nothing, I'm not here to make that wrong. There's just
No.
there's missing pieces to that puzzle. You know, it's like if your body is being contorted and pulled out of alignment, there's a reason for that. And that's an internal reason of like, what is the environment of my body? Is that environment stressed and tense? And so if I'm already compromised and I then try to improve my posture and my skeletal alignment, I am effectively pushing against that and asking my body to go into a vulnerable state, because a stretch is really to move periodically into a state of vulnerability so our
Yeah.
bodies can adapt and become more. But what happens is we go at that goal. I'm improving my posture, I'm stretching my body, I'm strengthening my body in resistance to our core need, which is often like to be more gentle, to start to like soften the way that we're treating our body and
Yes.
building up our energy. And so, yeah, I think that's important to kind of look at it as a core thing, because often like the body does get treated as like a meat sack, and the posture is a symptom of a deeper issue of like pressure building up in the body.
Yes.
And so while stretching and strengthening the body is great, addressing those two things at the same time is really helpful, because I just work with so many people that get stuck in this of they feel their body starting to degenerate and the pains and the tensions and the posture is out of balance, or maybe it's been like that for a long time, and then they decide to do something and then they're effectively saying, hey body, there's something wrong with you, I want to fix you, you're broken. And then the body just keeps mirroring that back.
Yeah.
All it's doing is mirroring our minds, because our body is a reflection of our mind. And so we need to change the very way that we relate with and connect with the body. It doesn't necessarily mean the actions change, but the way in which the intent underneath those actions must change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, it's not so much what you're doing, it's just how you're doing it. And the how is not based on fitness industry norms. This is right and this is wrong. It's how you're interacting with your body
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how you're using your body. This is what we are talking about.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it becomes the wonderful thing about it that I really appreciate, and this is sort of why I love doing this work, is that when you start to, like, a common thing is like when you feel the discomfort in your body, you feel frustrated and think of all the things that you can't do, and then that compounds. But it's actually a very powerful process, like a meditative process of self-reflection and looking at, okay, well, this is how I have interacted with life for maybe a long time. And my body is showing me that. This is how I learned, in my childhood how to be. And
Yeah.
it's all here. And so it's not going away by trying to out exercise it. You can't push against that. So it's a wonderful opportunity to go, oh, okay, this is what my body is signaling to me. Like my body is signaling to me, hey, you are really strong, but you've been pushing us for such a long time. Why have you been doing that? Why do you believe that you need to be more than what you are?
Yeah.
And and so while there's nothing wrong with becoming more, we're all here to grow, I believe. But coming back to being enough as you are, your body being enough, really fortifying and strengthening that relationship with the vessel that you live in, starting with a loving intent there, already it's like a warm hug of realization that can start to fill us up and go, I don't have to push myself to be over there. I don't have to push my body to be stronger and more flexible and better aligned. As that starts to shift, as you realize this body is incredible, it's taken me so far, right up until this point, thank you. And
Yeah.
I
And
do
then you
think,
realize
yeah,
what you have done all to this body, then you can even be more thankful.
totally, totally. But like that's sort of no one's really talking about this because, and I've seen this so many times. Once we start to connect with the body in this way, then internally we take off that handbrake and that pressure, and it's like, oh, okay, I can take this pressure off myself, and already you might start to feel more relaxed in your body, and then move from that place. So this is like just sort of linking it back to when we're exercising from that place to try and fix something that's broken and trying to push to become more, when inside there's limiting beliefs that we are not enough as we are, then
Yeah.
this it can really cause a lot of fatigue.
Yeah. And just to make it maybe a bit more bigger, it's not a belief, it's just a way how we learn to be.
Yeah,
And and this is how we lived our life until to this point.
yeah,
If this is the case. So
yeah.
it's just not just doing some mental work, it's really hardwired into your system.
Yeah, yeah. And so like as we get to that point, as we start to accept where our body's at, like really strengthen that relationship with the body, become aware of what we really need, then we start to the breathing patterns will start to change
Yeah.
and start to relax more. Then all of the things that are stuck, particularly like the lymphatic system, when the skeletal system's all locked up, the body's muscles are tense and all of that sort of stuff, we don't have much lymphatic flow through the body. And the lymph is sort of like your body's cleaning mechanism to clear out that stuff. And so when a lot of waste products build up in the body, then we experience a buildup of like lactic acid and all sorts of things that cause us to feel more tense. And so if we can understand that, once we start to get just generally before we start to like stretch the areas that feel tight, focusing on improving the flow of fluids through the body. And that can happen through gentle movement, breathing practices. It doesn't have to be intense to start to get that flowing. As that happens, the body can clear a lot of those waste products a lot more efficiently, and we
Yeah.
don't have to hold on to so much. It's actually a very different way of going about weight loss as well, I find, because when your body can start to take in more life force and the fluids start to circulate, the body goes out of the holding pattern and it doesn't have to stay in this state.
Yeah.
So, which brings us on to looking at exercise differently. If you are continuing to feel fatigued when you exercise in the ways that you have before, often the intensity of what we're doing is beyond the breath capacity that we have.
Yes.
So it's kind of like we have like an 8-cylinder engine, this powerful engine, but we don't have enough fuel supply going to it. So you put your foot to the floor, and not all the cylinders are getting all that fuel, and you might be firing on 6 or 4 cylinders, and that 8-cylinder engine's not going to perform that well when it hasn't got enough fuel. So that's how I look at working with our breathing is we're bringing in more fuel to support the basic functions of the body. And if we're really pushing but not filling up, you can see what starts to happen. And this is often why we experience that fatigue with a lot of traditional modes of exercise.
Yeah, and in a way, this is also well known in sports scientific field, like talking about VO2 max and then doing all those training plans around that. But the thing is, it's not just following along the metrics. It's just really get a deeper awareness for your body because your body is not falling like a machine and doing all day long the same thing. It's just a living organism continually adapting and very sensitive to the whole environment. And this is where often people also get stuck, even they know their metrics and they are follow along training protocols, because your body is not a machine. and and just to become aware of that and coming back more to using your breath more intuitively and just feeling where your body is at, and then bringing in movement according to your breathing capacity. So breath first, movement second can be a really profounding change how you're moving and how you're exercising. And
Mm.
it can be already supportive in filling up the system and training at the same time, and not just training because you think you need to do this and emptying the tank all the time,
Mm.
just to bring in the sports performance way of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What I find really helpful with this is starting to connect the body and the breathing and rhythm together. And so, like a
Yeah.
practical application that we can do, it may not necessarily mean that you need to change the exercise that you're doing, it can be really helpful to start to then connect the rhythm of your breathing with what you're doing. So, like, let's say you like running, for example. If you were to run and hold your breath, like, watch your running performance. If you take it a bit further, if you were to run and your breath's restricted, that running is going to be still less effective. But if you were to run and so you drop back the intensity a little bit and then start to breathe every X amount of steps, then what you start to do is you find a rhythm, and then you're taking in this life force consciously, fueling that activity that you're doing. It can be done in so many different ways. It can be done in strength training. It can be done when you're stretching, be done when you're cycling. It's different when we're swimming, depending on the stroke, but still,
Yeah.
often swimming is wonderful because it can force that natural cycle. Particularly, I'm not the best of swimmers, but I really love watching swimmers. And when they're doing a certain amount of strokes, and then they bring their head up, take that breath, and then they come. So it's like, in a way, it's kind of a wonderful breath work that's happening.
Yeah, they are quite effective with using their breath.
Yes, yeah, and the more advanced the swimmer, the better that is. And
Yeah.
so, like, really, the moral of the story, to make it practical, is looking at ways on where we can start to bring in more life force and linking that with movement. And I love breath work, but something really wonderful happens when we start to bring it together with the movement that we're doing.
Yeah, that's true. And just as a side note, or just to reconnect with, if you're going always beyond your breath capacity, just watch yourself during your day, how your breathing is happening in your daily life, in your daily work, and just become aware of what's there, of the shortness of the breath, how restful and how relaxed is your breathing during your day, and then just make up your mind by yourself. If you start observing that your breathing is already restricted in your daily life, you feel like tension building up and all that stuff, and you go into your sport and you do your thing, and you're doing the same thing, just using your breath again, just harder, how will your body respond to that? This is not adding up over time. It will just depleting and getting worse. So it's not that hard to understand. You just need to become aware of what's happening,
Yeah.
and then you can see why things are how they are.
Mm. So, really, the key takeaway here is, if you would like to keep exercising as you continue to age, and you are noticing that fatigue is setting in, your body's feeling like less vital, and that's not changing, become aware of the state of your nervous system. Like, really honor that. Look at, like, what are the stress factors, like the blockages basically that are limiting the flow of energy through your body. Looking at then how that's affecting the alignment of your body, the stiffness of your body, learning how to work with that in a way that builds a relationship that you want to have with your body, rather than continuing to treat your body as a restriction, an enemy that is hindering your freedom, but more a gateway to freedom through
Yeah.
connection with it. And then starting to link the intensity of the activities that you're doing with the capacity of your breathing, and then gradually building up that capacity. So as your breath is able to deepen, well, then you may notice that you can increase the intensity of what it is that you're doing. And so I've broken down all of these things into a process I call embodied breath work. And it's basically a series of practices that we connect with the movement of the body, we connect with the breathing, and then we also are focusing the mind, because this is a very common thing of, like, our minds are very all over the place and chaotic. A lot of people struggle with focus, stillness, meditation, and so it brings it all together. And if we can do that, what I find is we're working with the changing of the brain frequencies of the body. We're starting to increase the capacity of the breathing so we can feel the body. And then we're also, as we can breathe deeper, we're starting to then unbind the physical restrictions around the fascia system. If we can do all of that, there's really wonderful ingredients for the body to start to revitalize. And so it's a bit of a different approach for looking at exercise, but it's very helpful, particularly if you are in that fatigue state and if you are looking to move into a more vital state, or if you've been doing things and you just want to take it to the next level.
Yeah. So in a way, to come back to the beginning, we are rebuilding the engine. On all levels, not just sitting down and breathing. We're really honoring the body movement, the skeletal structure. So it's all necessary that things can rebuild.
That's it. Yeah. Well, I hope that that's helpful. At the end of the day, the most important thing is to find ways for you to connect with the vessel that supports you. And there's no right or wrong way to do that. I really do believe that we each have incredible power within us. And my goal is to support as many people as I can to connect with that.
Yeah. And thanks for watching us. And yeah, if this course is released, come and check it out and make your own experience with it. What we can say, if you're doing it, it will support and works for you on many levels.
Mm.